balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host with the most, looking sometimes like a ghost. Okay, I've quit. Rick. Sorry, that just came to me. It just hit me in the head and I had to get it out. I don't know. Anyway, welcome everybody, and welcome to, of course, American Perspective, where we take a look at the day's events from an American viewpoint. My goodness. So, I had a few things that came up. I haven't picked on Tampon Tim in a while, so here we're gonna hit him up quite a bit tonight. And also too, does anybody realize that we're less than 64 days, folks, until the election? That's right, a little over 2 months away from the election. Wow, time has flown by. And of course, we have two big events coming up. September 10th being, of course, the debate, assuming that it happens, the debate with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, where Kamala Harris doesn't seem to get what she wanted, which was Mike's Hot. At least I have, my understanding is that ABC has already just basically said, no, these are the rules and this is what you agreed upon, and there you go. Also, too, September 18th, we cannot forget the fact that Donald Trump may be sentenced to jail. That's not a good thing, by the way, provided, of course, that actually happens. I mean, I haven't really heard anything else, but we'll have to see what happens here as far as that goes. Also, too, something just popped in the Rumble stream. The McGroin Nation has raided us. That basically just gives anybody who is over on the McGroin Nation channel basically points to this channel. And people will come and the McGroins will come over here. I already see Tick Pick and McGroin in the chat. Thank you. Welcome to all the McGroins who may come by. I haven't seen Pops McGroin in a while. There's Lisa or Lisa R, I think it's actually what it is. Thank you for coming and raiding this stream. Now, for those of you that don't know, the McGroin Nation is basically a group of patriots who, yeah, there we go. Lisa R, got it. A group of patriots who go and support channels like mine, because of the fact that we all have a desire to save this country from the Marxist, leftist, Democrat morons, because again, only morons vote Democrat. At least that's my view. So anyway, thank you. Welcome to all the McGroins. I see Certified McGroin. I see Pops McGroin came. Hi guys. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. And there's Tick Pick and McGroin again. So thank you all so much for coming by. I do appreciate the raid. Okay. We've also got a very large commemorative date as well. 9/11 is coming up. And for that, I have something special. But first, we need to something special from one of my sponsors with regards to that. But first, what we need to do is, of course, recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat like I will, and place your hand over your heart and follow along with Ms. T of Texas. Ms. T of Texas, also, that's on the Rumble side, and then she also hangs out in Facebook land. as another handle, but I haven't seen her yet tonight. That's too bad. But anyway, she is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat, put your hand over your heart, and follow along with Ms. T of Texas in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. T, for that wonderful rendition. If you would like to hear your rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance, you can do it by recording yourself and then, of course, taking that audio file and emailing it to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will put you into the rotation along with everybody else. We've got a bunch of them in there now, and I do appreciate that. That definitely helps me out. So for tonight's sponsor, I have theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt, all together, all one word, .com. And you can go and check this out. They have a commemorative t-shirt available. This is the men's version. 9/11 commemorative United We Stand t-shirt for 9/11 coming up. And I wanted to highlight this because, of course, if you order today or in the next day or so, they will likely get it out to you before 9/11, and you can wear it on 9/11. This is a this is the back I'm showing on the screen here. This is the back of the shirt. The front of the shirt also has a the same, I think it's the same decal or the same image on the front of the shirt, just in the front upper corner. You can also go there to theflagshirt.com and check out all of their other clothing as well. I wear, like this shirt that I've got right on right now, which is the Constitution t-shirt, performance t-shirt, that is part of their menswear collection. You can go and check it all out at theflagshirt.com. And if you order $75 or more, you can get free shipping. But I know some people don't want to necessarily order $75 of something. So here, I'm going to kick in a little extra for you. If you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, that's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you can get a code that you can take and enter in the promo code box at checkout and get $5 off your order. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get that code that you can then copy and paste in the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com to get $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself, like me, patriotized. All right. So, a bit of a programming note. I do not have a pet of the week for tomorrow. I also do not have a question for Saturday. So wide open on both. So there we go. Okay. Hey, it's lowercase caps. Hello. Hi there. And I'm sorry to hear Coco and my news. I'm sorry to hear about the passing of your friends, the people that you knew. So give a special prayer to them tonight for their souls as they have moved on. All right. So as I mentioned at the top of the hour, we are roughly 64 days and counting down to the elections. And the first election mail-in ballots are scheduled to go out this week. So starting on Friday, September 6th, North Carolina voters will start to see, depending upon how, fast the ballots get there, but North Carolina voters will start to see their ballots show up. Hopefully, though, if you have questions and are still undecided on who you're going to vote for, that you'll wait until after September 10th to find out what happens in the debate. Not that I'm trying to tell you to do something that you don't want to do. I mean, if you've already made up your mind, go ahead and vote. I'm certainly not going to suggest that you don't. But if you're questionable as to whether or not you really want either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, I would suggest waiting until at least after the debates, because I have a feeling the debates are going to be extremely revealing. And so, unfortunately, if you're questioning or sitting on the fence, man, I'm telling you, the more information that you have, the better off you are going to be. And speaking of more information, I've got a little bit of something about Kamala Harris. This is from a person who was a prosecutor in California for 24 years. This article came out in the in the Federalist, and it's written by somebody who was a California prosecutor for 24 years. And they are claiming, by the way, Kamala Harris's tough on crime shtick is a scam. So let's take a little bit closer look here. And just so everybody can kind of see and know what's going on here. The writer served for 24 years as the elected Riverside County District Attorney, which, according to them, is the fourth largest DA's office in California. And this person received, and it's Grover Trask, assuming male, but basically was with bipartisan support. And taking a look in from a viewpoint in the profession, the writer here says that Harris was a failed prosecutor, both as a San Francisco DA and California Attorney General. Her record, social media posts, and own words reveal her as a far left politician. Well, anybody that's on this program, you all know that's no surprise. Absolutely no surprise here. But definitely what you're looking at in terms of this is that she is not fair-minded. She's not a tough, nonpartisan prosecutor. Her actions reveal more sympathy for the criminals than for the crime victims and the law-abiding members of the public. Now, this particular individual is saying that district attorneys should be nonpartisan professional prosecutors seeking justice with integrity and ethics as their cornerstone. Their job is to protect public safety by enforcing the law and prosecuting criminals. To the contrary, as a progressive prosecutor, they claim, Harris refused to file a death penalty case against a gang member who gunned down a young police officer, had numerous ethical lapses and constitutional violations, causing the dismissal of over 1,000 criminal drug cases, and disregarded victims' requests for help dealing with the Catholic clergy sex abuse cases, failing to prosecute any related cases as DA or AG. And in fact, I believe it was on Wendy Bell. Wendy Bell Radio had just last week had a sex abuse victim on the phone who basically made and leveraged that allegation toward Kamala Harris. Was the fact that originally the original DA that she replaced was going to go full bore against the particular church and the clergymen who did this sexual abuse. And then when she got into office, she basically just stopped responding and buried it. So this isn't the first time that I've heard that. The writer continues here, far from following her oath to uphold the Constitution and protect public safety, she has advocated for open borders, welcoming the inevitable criminal elements such as of such policies into our cities and towns, like Aurora, Colorado, which is got a couple of apartment complexes under siege right now from the criminal element with automatic weapons or what appear to be automatic weapons, and things of that nature. All right. She's supported defunding the police, removing ICE as an enforcement tool. Unbelievably, she continues to promote no cash bail, allowing serious and violent criminals back on the streets to reoffend. The writer continues on further as AG, her misleading ballot description led to the passage of the hoax Proposition 47, ironically titled the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. This law created a prison to homelessness pipeline that sent thousands of state prisoners back into local communities. Yeah. So there is a lot of stuff here. You should take a look. It's in the show notes. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I can tell you this much. She's just horrible. She is absolutely horrible. And honestly too, I mean, again, keep in mind, she doesn't have much in the way of foreign policy, if any, other than the fact that she wants Hamas to stay alive in Israel and things like that. Which, you know, anyone with any semblance of understanding of the Middle East knows that that can't happen. But anyway, yeah. So there you go. There's a lot more to it, to this article, that you can go and take a look. It's in the Federalist. It is ironically the first article in my description in the show notes. If you go and grab that link and, yeah. So, yeah. So anyway, there's all kinds of bad news going on with her. Kamala Harris. She is just bad news, people. I'm telling you, if we lose in 2024, if we lose in just less than 64 days, this country will cease to exist as we know it today, and with very little chance of having a pathway back. And this is not, I'm not trying to be gaslighting. I'm not trying to be hyperbole. I'm not, yeah, I'm serious. This, to me, this is the quintessential vote of our lifetime. Well, one of the things that have, of course, occurred here recently is the discovery of 6 hostages that were found dead in Gaza. Now, for those that don't know, what happened was the IDF was apparently searching for the hostages and was close enough that reportedly the IDF unit that found the dead hostages, which included an American, by the way, heard the shots of that American dying. And the hostages were apparently, according to the coroners, or the equivalency of a coroner over there in Israel, or in Israel, was essentially the fact that they were killed within 48 hours. So, yeah. So you have to ask yourself, what did Tim Walz have to say about that? What did Tim Walz, when specifically asked about it by a reporter, what did Tim Walz respond with? Well, here in Town Hall, this is exactly what Tim Walz did. Now, Tim Walz, at the time, was slurping up milkshakes, eating pork chops on a stick at the state fair. Now, the fact of the matter is, believe me, I saw over the socials and the social media folks, they were all of the bots and sycophantic Democrat liberal leftist morons were all like, "Hey, do you want a VP that eats pork chops on a stick?" You know, trying to like make this whole thing this. I guess it's I guess it's a Minnesota thing. I don't know, but you know, some sort of Midwest thing with pork chops on a stick. But anyway, he was eating them at the fair this weekend. He was helping out with ice cream, I guess. He was trying to, like, you know, trying to make himself look personable because that's his shtick. But he ended up being asked by a reporter in here. Just gonna play this back for you, but he was asked by a reporter about it, and here's what Walz had to say.
What's your reaction to the 6 hostages being found in Gaza?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, did you check that out? Check that out? The woman, and I'm sorry, she was a little low, but the woman reporter asked, "What is your reaction to the 6 hostages being killed in Gaza?" And what did Tim Walz do? "Thanks, everybody." Threw a hand up, said, "Thanks, everybody," and walked off. He was looking right at her when she said and asked the question. He was looking right at her. And he chose to ignore it. Now, granted, his handler guy, you could see the guy in the light-colored pink shirt or whatever, say something to him, probably "don't answer" or something along those lines. But the man didn't even bother to say it's a tragedy. He didn't even bother to say, "Wow, that's too bad." He just said, "Thanks, everybody," and walked away. And you want this guy to be second in command? Yeah, I don't think so, Scooter. But he listened to the whole question. He looked right at her, listened to the whole question, and yep, he just walked away. He just said, "Thanks, everybody," and walked away. And one of those 6, of course, was American Hirsch Goldberg Poland. Yeah. So that's what Tim Walz thinks. But you know what? We're not the only ones, believe it or not. We are not the only ones here who have a problem with Tim Walz, and it's not even just his old National Guardsmen, his old leadership, none of those people. They all are on board with this. Tim Walz is a lying, stolen valor coward. But apparently Tim Walz might not have been the best pick for VP. He might not have been the best pick, because now what apparently they are starting to see, according to PJ Media here, is that Tim Walz may actually be hurting Kamala Harris in his own home state. That's right. He may actually be hurting Kamala's chances of winning Minnesota, according to this PJ Media article. So, apparently there's some polling. Now, I haven't been paying attention to the polling because, to be honest with you, to me, the polls and the polling are just like, they're all over the board right now. But according to this, recent polling shows that Virginia may actually be in play. Kamala is headed to New Hampshire this week, which may be a sign that her campaign is worried about the state. Now, this is pretty bad, okay? This is pretty bad. Because when you have a candidate going to what should be states that are locked up tight for you, that's kind of an indication that you're not exactly sure that they are, you're not certain anyway, that they are as locked up as what you think they are. Now, she's headed to New Hampshire. She has been to Maine, or no, she hasn't been to Maine, but Trump was actually gaining ground, according to the piece here, was actually gaining ground in Maine, Virginia, New Hampshire, and even Minnesota, where they might have been actually in or approaching toss-up territory. Now, when Kamala replaced Biden, this was when Biden was still running, when Kamala replaced Biden, the polls told us that those states were no longer in reach of Trump. However, now we're starting to see numbers, according to the piece here, that her selection of Governor Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, lying, stolen, valor, coward Tim, may actually be hurting her. So here, Kamala Harris's bet on Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz has actually lost her ground in his home state. That's the takeaway from a new polling of 635 likely voters from Minnesota's KSTP. I'm assuming that's a television station or radio station in that space. But she says the Democrat presidential nominee's advantage over Donald Trump has been cut in half since she picked Walz as her running mate last month, and has actually showcased the ticket it went after the Democratic National Convention. Harris now leads Trump 48-43, which is a significant decline from a previous survey they took, which showed her up 50-40. So Trump gained 8 and she lost roughly 7%, with the difference, of course, being from, undecideds, I would guess, between the two. But now that is the opposite of a post-convention bump. Which, by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but ABC News doesn't think she got a post-convention bump. In fact, she's pretty well flat at this point. But anyway, this is particularly remarkable, the piece says, given that this was a poll that included more Democrats than Republicans. What? Democrats were making up 40% of the sample of 635 likely voters. Republicans were 35%, and independents wrapped up the remainder. Well, so here's part of the problem, they say. Only 52% of Minnesota voters see him as an excellent or good choice, with 12% saying that he's a fair selection. Now, that, for those of you that can't do math very quickly, that adds up to 64% saying that he's at least okay. But now there's a staggering, or as a part of that same thing, according to the New York Post, there's a staggering 34% that say that he's a poor pick. Walz himself is underwater with men, with only 49% approving of his selection and 50% opposing it. About 40% of the male respondents called him a poor choice of a running mate. And here they continue, where voters under the age of 35, which is a demographic that Harris actually needs in November, aren't all that enthusiastic about him. 49% of that demographic said that Walz was an excellent or good pick. The other 51% regarded him as unfavorable. And those particular voters, or that class of voters, make up roughly 25% of the anticipated November electorate. Walz is also 1 percentage point underwater with parents. Wow. Among people with children, 35% say that he's a poor selection. Dramatic urban-rural divide. Remember his Midwestern charm was supposed to woo some of the rural voters in? Well, apparently to this, 38% of rural residents approved of the pick compared to 59% of those in the suburbs and 61% of those in urban areas. Well, yeah, he's not really, yeah. This is not looking good. This is not looking good. And of course, you know, part of the problem too, by the way, with this whole thing and a lot of polling and a lot of information that's coming in is basically saying things like, hey, you know, this guy probably isn't the greatest pick in the world for you. And there's a reason for it. It's because Walz is, again, a lying, stolen valor coward. And that interview that taped replay or whatever, hashed together, you want to call it an interview, you can. But on CNN, where he was specifically asked the question and given the opportunity to be able to clear up any and all of his misquotes and claims and all kinds of stuff. And he chose to not answer the question at all. Basically said, well, it's my grammar. He fell on the sword as, I don't speaks good. What a freaking mess. Well, you know, it's bad enough that your veteran buddies, you know, came out with this story, but it's even worse when they go onto a publicly televised show. Publicly televised, meaning a podcast like mine, very much more popular. But here you can kind of see, I've already seen some of these guys. This is in the Daily Wire, by the way. Veterans who knew Walz tear him apart. Military impersonator, habitual liar, coward, and worse was used. So the 4 veterans who knew Governor Tim Walz and spoke about his service in the National Guard and his subsequent claims about that service went to an interview, did an interview with podcast host Megyn Kelly that was released yesterday. The 4 spoke about the multiple controversies surrounding Walz's own characterizations of his 24 years of service, about his claim that he retired without knowing, that he retired without knowing that his unit was set to deploy to Iraq, and his repeated statements about retiring as a command sergeant major. Well, they had very few positive things to say about Tampon Tim. So just to give you an idea, here's again some of the words that they used. In a brief preview of the episode, they can be heard referring to Walz as a habitual liar, a coward, and morally indefensible. Now, one of the 4 actually accused Walz of using his exaggerations and embellishments to make it all about him, and another simply referred to him as a military impersonator. Yeah, he's a habitual liar. He lies about everything. He lies about stuff that doesn't make sense, one said. You are taking a piece of their thunder and you're trying to capture it and put it into a bottle, or put it in a bottle for yourself, and use that for your own benefit. The same guy said, fear is a reaction, bravery is a decision. And he mentioned that at every possible juncture, Walz had made the wrong choice. Yeah. So, During one part of the episode, Kelly had compiled a series of clips in which Walz had either introduced himself as retired command sergeant major, or someone else introduced him as such, and he made no move to correct them, in spite of the fact that he only held that rank in a conditional capacity and for a brief period that did not extend into his retirement. Yeah. And if you go to this link that I have in there, I think it's in there, but if you go to this link, you can actually watch the entire episode on YouTube of the Megyn Kelly Show. It's episode 876, and you can listen. Now, I know that the gentleman in the red shirt here that you can see right here in the foreground, that guy was the original command sergeant major that took his place going over to Iraq when Walz decided to quote unquote retire because he didn't want to go. I'm telling you, the things are stacking up against this guy. They really, really are. And they should, because this guy is just a bum. He's a horrible person. He can't keep his own lies straight. He's lied about his DUI. He's lied about his military service. He's lied about all kinds of different things. He left his troops out to dry, going off to Iraq. He left Minneapolis out to dry for 3 days during the BLM riots. Now, there's also another person who has jumped in on the bandwagon that is essentially saying that Tim Walz is a horrible person. Now this, family's family. And no matter how bad or how much I may disagree with my family, I don't think I would ever necessarily disparage them in public, unless, of course, they've done something extremely bad, and in which case, that might be a bit of a problem. Like, for an example, if my family member were to go and, say, kill somebody else, that would be kind of a bit of a problem. But to essentially say, like Tim Walz's brother Jeff is saying, this in the Daily Wire, Jeff Walz, brother of Tim Walz, blasts the VP pick, says that he has bad character. Now, what's a little bit, I don't know if you necessarily want to call it irony here, but it's very interesting. The brother of him, so this is Jeff Walz, he is actually considering endorsing former President Donald Trump. And he has also hinted that he could release dirt on his sibling in the run-up to the November election. Could this potentially be an October surprise? So he apparently has made remarks in social media posts on Tim Walz that were unearthed last week by the New York Post. New York Post told us about the Hunter Biden laptop, which was labeled Russian disinformation and was since discovered to be 100% accurate. But I digress. So the story comes, which is the New York Post story, comes as Tim Walz is facing increased scrutiny after being caught making misleading claims about IVF, his DUI arrest, past accomplishments, misconstruing his military service, too. So someone on Facebook apparently suggested that Jeff talked to his brother. And Jeff Walz said that they had not spoken in 8 years. And he also stated, quote, I am 100% opposed to all his ideology. Now, for those of you that don't know, Tim Walz has socialist tendencies. This is kind of a bit of a problem. He also, meaning Jeff, also indicated that he was never informed in advance that Tim was going to be the VP pick for VP Kamala Harris. You get that? He said, my family wasn't given any notice that he was selected and was denied security in the days after. Gee, I wonder why. There's a report, by the way, that the Secret Service is actually about 650 people shy of their requirements, not only for the president, vice president, the two candidates, their families, but also there's a potential that they may not be able to cover all of the dignitaries that are coming in at the UN starting in September 10th. So they're missing a huge bunch of people. according to reports. Another Facebook person suggested that he get on stage with President Trump and endorse him at a political rally. Jeff Walz responded, "I've thought long and hard about doing something like that. I'm torn between that and just keeping my family out of it. The stories I could tell, not the type of character you want making decisions about your future." Now, of course, he also told the New York Post that he was currently not doing any interviews. I wish he would. I wish he would. And unfortunately, if he doesn't, that could be enough to sway this election. Folks, we need to understand, we need to realize and really come to grips with the idea that a lack of information or a set of information that is disputed and determined to be what is considered misinformation, disinformation, whatever kind of other adjectives the federal government wants to say, we need to keep an open mind about all of this because of the fact that this, again, is such an important election cycle of our lifetime, not just of the year, not just of the decade, but of our lifetime. Do we really want people like Kamala Harris, Kamala Chameleon, who she dropped into like an accent and tried to pass it off she was in two different cities. I'm sure you guys have seen the videos, but she's in two different cities, one in Detroit, the other in, I believe it was Philadelphia. They're only hours apart. And so what she ended up doing is giving the same speech in both locations. And when she did it in Detroit, she had shall we say, an affected accent. She attempted to sound Southern, I guess, in Detroit. And yet when she went to, I can't remember, I don't know if it's Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. Somebody's going to have to correct me. But go over to the other one in Pennsylvania, the other city, and she completely dropped the affect. She's a panderer. That's all she does, folks. She doesn't care about what you think. She just wants your votes. And she's not going to do what you think she's going to do. She is literally a chameleon. She'll become whatever it is that you want her to be, such that you will give her your votes. That's it. That's all she cares about. She doesn't care about anything else. And she is certainly not going to clarify, quantify, or articulate her positions correctly, the ones that are really going to matter to her before the election is over, because of the fact that she can't afford to do that. If she does, what's going to end up happening is that she is going to immediately institute far leftist policies. As you know, when she spent her time in the Senate before she was plucked out of there to go become the vice president, she was the most leftist, far left. She was even farther left than Bernie Sanders, according to the grading scales. Far left than Elizabeth Warren. Far left than AOC. She was the farthest left person I think we have seen in modern history. And when you tie her with socialist Walz, tampon Tim, stolen valor coward, lying stolen stolen valor coward, what you end up with is the two most progressive two most progressive candidates that we have ever seen, perhaps in our history. And that's saying a lot, considering Woodrow Wilson was like one of the most progressive presidents we've ever had in history. Folks, seriously, this election is going to come down to one simple question. Do you want America to continue being a republic, or do you want to live in some communist, socialist, Marxist-driven hellscape? Because that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. If you pick the Kamala, Walz, Tampon Tim, Kamala Chameleon train, we are through. We're done. You know, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm using this program to get the word out to people. I'm using my social medias to get the word out to people. What we need to do is to get people out to vote. You can't believe in the polls. You can't rely on the polls. Don't listen to the pollsters. Because if you remember back in 2016, the pollsters were saying, oh yeah, Donald Trump's dead. It's over. Hillary Clinton, the Wicked Witch of the West, or actually the Wicked Witch of the Midwest, was going to win. She had a 92% assurance that she was going to be the first woman president. And what happened? Well, the Trump train came and ran the witch over. We need to do that all over again, folks. We do. We need to do that all over again. We got to do it. We got to do it. Now, Crazy Moan McGroin, welcome. I think this is the first time I've seen you, but commented here in Rumble, says, nope, it's not done as it's in the Constitution to overthrow any communist government, I thought. The line that you're referring to is actually in the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution has nothing in that with regards to overthrowing. That's a Declaration of Independence statement. But that being said, those two pieces of paper are literally just parchment and ink. If you don't have the following people to back it up and enforce it. And that's really the key. That's really the key. And Pops, yes, I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to put that online, but I too have Boy George in my head, thanks to you guys over on the Rumbles. All right. Let me move on to my next article before I get into something really messed up. Okay. So I talked to you not too long ago about Texas cutting out and removing close to, if it wasn't, 1 million, illegal voters on their rolls. And Texas isn't the only one. There's other states that are all doing it too. They're all finding not only ineligible voters, but they're also finding non-citizens that have registered, thanks to our 1993 Motor Voter Act, as well as the clarification executive order that Biden put out, and all of those things that have been going on. And, you know, again, the Democrats are saying, oh, no, illegals voting or non-citizens voting, that's just not happening because it's illegal. No, it's not. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. Yes, it is illegal, but just because it's illegal, I mean, just take a look. We have 6 million or whatever the current freaking number is of illegal aliens that have crossed our border. It's illegal to cross our border, yet they do it all the time. So anyway, but here in the Federalist, this is a cause for concern. Senator Ron Johnson actually wrote this piece titled Democrat-Controlled States Refuse to Clean Voter Rolls and Fix Election Problems. This is true. Which, by the way, the Speaker of the House, Johnson, has stated or hinted at the fact that he is probably going to take the SAVE Act, which was the you must demonstrate citizenship in order to register to vote. And he is suggesting that he's going to tie that to the budget bills that they have coming up in the House. And Democrats are not happy about that. Not at all. But that being said, let's get back to this piece in the Federalist again. So President Joe Biden has vowed to veto named Safe Voter it's called Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, which is shortened up to the SAVE Act, which again just simply requires proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. Okay. His promise was made in reaction to congressional Republicans who want to include it with any continuing resolution required to fund the next fiscal year, which of course begins on October 1st. Now, let's put it this way, Oatmeal Brains' adamant opposition to what most Americans support demonstrates just how much the Democrats are dedicated in making it easier to cheat in elections. On December 16th, 2020, Senator Ron Johnson held a hearing titled Examining the Irregularities in the 2020 Election. And in spite of the wailing and gnashing of teeth from the election irregularity deniers, there were many indisputable irregularities. So he continues here. In Wisconsin, 170,000 faulty absentee ballots in Milwaukee and Dane County were improperly counted by election clerks. Representatives of the far-left Zuckerbucks program imposed such heavy-handed direction in Green Bay that the local election clerk resigned from the stress and allowed Zuckerberg's minions to run the election. Democracy in the Park was allowed in Madison, where activists unlawfully collected 17,300 ballots. Seniors in nursing homes voted without the required voting deputies present, bordering on elder abuse for political gain, Ron Johnson claims. As was the case in other states, election observers were not allowed to effectively observe the election process. And more recently, and this is one of the ones I was referring to, Virginia canceled 6,303 non-citizen voter registrations. So the problem here, of course, is that the election irregularity deniers have been so effective, aided and abetted by the corporate media, that these abuses have not only been ignored, but those who wish to cheat in 2024 have been able to devise new election fraud schemes. And absent media scrutiny, Republicans are undertaking efforts to stop them. Folks, we are going to have a very large setup for voter fraud this year. If you think 2020 was bad, just wait. 2024, especially if the polls... See, now, here's the thing. If we'd have had Joe Biden as the opponent, I guarantee you there would be like something they would try and, call off the election. There'd be all kinds of stuff, all kinds of shenanigans going on. And it wouldn't be hidden. It would have been wide open, in the open. But we're not quite there yet with Kamala Harris. Because according to the polls, and again, keep in mind, I'm not looking at the polls. They are snapshots in time. They are also, obviously heavily weighted in certain cases. But what's happening here is the ideas that because we haven't completely cleaned up 2020, is that 2024 is potentially going to be just as bad, if not worse. And I don't know for sure if any of you have the opportunity and can help out at the elections in order to help prevent. And I'm not saying that if you do this, that you need to make sure that, you're leaning it toward the right. No, just be honest about it. And be honest about what you are seeing and what you do in those positions. But the reality is that we have a lot of election processes that are in trouble here. That we need to be able to fix these things and be able to correct the problems that we have, cleaning up the voter rolls, cleaning up, the election cycles, getting each state to do what it needs to do in order to ensure our election integrity is where we need to be with all of this. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And it's coming. This year is going to be tough. We're going to have to watch it. All right, one last thing. You haven't heard a lot about the Red Sea and the Houthis lately. And the reason being is because I don't think the American government can afford this embarrassing piece. According to the outlet Unheard, that's UNHERD, the Houthis now rule the Red Sea. So, yeah. The blockade is apparently stronger than ever, according to the piece here. And the American military has basically given up on trying to lift it. They're bolstered by 0 aircraft carriers because they're elsewhere. The Houthis managed to board a Greek flagged oil tanker, plant some explosives, and chant "Death to America, death to Israel." Sorry. Oh, come on. I don't know how it did that, but anyway. All right, sorry. My camera zoomed in accidentally. Chant "Death to America, death to Israel" as the vessel went up in flames. And last week, apparently the Pentagon quietly admitted that the tanker is still on fire and is now appears to be leaking oil. And this, you would think this would be news. You would think this would be news, but no, it's not. This is one of the most important trade routes in the world, now being blocked by essentially a ragtag group of militants, and the U.S. Navy has pretty much given up. And yet, you don't hear about it at all. This is a bit of a problem, people. This is the problem with having a weak leader, and we're going to be in for more should Donald Trump not retain the presidency, should the Republicans not take back the Senate and the House, or at least one of the two, in 2024. All right, folks, that's it for me for tonight. Do me a favor, if you enjoy the program, make sure you head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account because it is free, and that is the free speech alternative to YouTube. Get your account, and once you do, sign in and then go to and search up the American Perspective channel and make sure you hit that green follow button in order to make sure that you get notified every time I go live. Also, too, make sure on all of my outlets that you hit those thumbs up buttons, the like buttons, whatever you want to go, and put them all up, and make sure that you help me out That is like one of the largest things that gets these videos seen by more and more people. We will see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Whiskey Wednesday. I know it kind of throws you off because we had Labor Day off, but tomorrow night is Whiskey Wednesday, and hopefully somebody can submit a pet of the week for me, so I'll have a pet of the week for everybody. Tomorrow night, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of the evening. We'll see you all tomorrow, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.